Imagine some guy named Oscar is driving through the city and searches for a parking spot, but he can't find one near, and even if he could, he would have to walk to the next office to buy a parking ticket. He also doesn't want to type his location in a mobile app and then make the payment with his credentials. And to park in an overpriced parking garage, which is mostly wide away from his desired destination, is not a good option either. So instead, imagine the same scene in the near future. Oscar can let his smart car search for a parking spot. If the car finds one, it shows him on some display how much it costs per hour and he only needs to accept. After his stay, Oscar drives away without the need to pay the fee himself. The car simply communicates the time to the parking spot system and the parking fee is paid automatically. Oscar had an enjoyable stay without all of the stress, and there are so many other use cases where two devices can directly communicate with each other to make our daily lives easier. And imagine further that from all data which is collected from Oscar, he can decide which to share in the data marketplace and which not. He also gets a small reward for sharing, and furthermore, he can decide whether that data can be linked back to his identity. Now you may be asked, how will this be possible? That's just one of the thousands of possibilities with VeChain, which is a new award-winning project in the Internet of Things industry using the blockchain. Internet of Things, or in short IoT, is the interconnection of computers, mobile phones, and all other objects, which are nowadays smart. Currently, more than 20 billion devices are connected, and according to reports, it will grow to 75 billion by 2025. But IoT nowadays is facing major problems. One of them is security due to the centralization of cloud computing systems. These server farms also have downsides in performance, efficiency, and cost effectiveness. And by now, privacy, including the ownership of data, is another big problem. Currently, most companies are collecting your data without you even knowing and make profit out of it. So how is VeChain able to solve these issues? It has its own cryptocurrency called ITC token, which is responsible for these micropayments like the parking fee. VeChain also has its own data marketplace, where the shared data is offered. Data processors buy special sets of data, and you get a fair share of your contribution. Another more profitable example for the consumer would be the sharing of collected sensor data from modern cars, and their usage for the development of self-driving cars. So there are many transactions, and you need to make these low-cost and performant. VeChain solves this with using a new blockchain architecture called Directed Acyclic Graph, or DAG. It is like a tree structure, so whenever some device wants to make a transaction, at first it has to validate two other transactions. Therefore, the system will get more secure, efficient, and performant the more people use it. Because no big server infrastructure or miners are needed, it also reduces costs and the consuming of energy, so it's basically green. Yay! Let's show the performance in numbers. To compare it with common payment systems, there is an indicator called transactions per second. Visa, for example, is able to handle 1,700 transactions per second, Bitcoin 3 to 5, and Ethereum around 20. VeChain aims for 100,000 transactions per second, which would be a huge boost. So why is it more secure? In order to manipulate transactions, hackers must attack many of the devices connected to the system and not only one. Other attacks like DDoS attacks are prevented by taking very small transaction fees for value transactions, so attacks would be too costly for hackers. If smaller attacks occur, they are handled with an algorithm called practical Byzantine fault tolerance, which balances misbehaviors of this sort. The usage of asymmetrical encryption, which is the thing with private and public keys, makes the system even more secure. To make it easy to integrate, the VeChain protocol for device manufacturers, the foundation in partnership with a big IoT manufacturer, currently develops their own very cheap hardware chip, which is functioning as a light node. Furthermore, to make it possible to include other small devices with small storage, VeChain have a system called simplified payment verification, so the devices simply don't have to store all of the chain's data. So the ITC token plays a central role in the system. But another big bonus point is that the supply is restricted by some finite number. With a current ITC market cap of $100 million and the prospect of a growth of the global IoT market to $8.9 trillion by 2020, huge growth potential exists. And VeChain is on the best way to find its place in the sector, with more and more partnerships being announced every month.